84-year-old woman and her 3 ex-husbands on the next Jenny Jones.
Won the bird in 10 minutes.
It's exclusive. They're going to take us inside.
Maybe you never heard of Branson, Missouri, but if you're into country music, this place is almost heaven.
There's no other place on the face of this earth that this many entertainers get together.
It's the #1 live country music town in the world, no doubt about it.
Here in Branson.
We'll tell you why country music's finest are smiling all the way to the bank in Branson.
Stand by.
Hello again and welcome to Inside Edition Extra. I'm Tom Ellis and we're glad to have you with us today. Up first, a beautiful young woman is killed in Africa. The authorities there blame wild animals. Case closed, right? Wrong. That might have been the end of the story, but the woman's father didn't buy it. He was determined to see justice done. So we sent Joel Loy to Kenya for this report.
Kenya, East Africa. In Swahili, the word safari means a journey. Since 1988, John and Janet Ward have been on safari for the truth about the murder of their daughter. Her name was Julie.
We owe it to her. She must have died a horrible death, and I think it's partly for us as well. There is an element of revenge.
At the moment, I'm not interested in justice or revenge or anything. I haven't got there yet. I still want to know what happened to her in those last 6 days.
Julie Ward was a vivacious young English woman in her 20s. Now, Julie lusted for adventure. She wanted to travel and see the world. She'd been to Africa on more than one occasion, but it wasn't the tourist markets like this one in Nairobi that truly interested her. She wanted to be out in the bush with her camera. As she told her father, "Daddy, I'm going to Kenya to photograph the jumbos." The place to photograph the jumbos and an extraordinary variety of wildlife is the Masai Mara Game Reserve, a vast expanse of wilderness on the Serengeti Plain. Annually, more than 250,000 tourists visit here. Most are blissfully unaware of any serious threat to their safety. Few would argue that this is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Julie Ward loved it here. It was a place to see all the majesty of nature. But it can also be a very violent and dangerous place. In the animal kingdom, some are predators, while others are prey. And tragically, sometimes the predators walk on 2 legs. In September of 1988, Julie Ward came to the Mara to photograph the annual wildebeest migration. But Julie's vehicle broke down. While it was being repaired, Julie's traveling companion had to go back to Nairobi, leaving Julie alone.
She was adamant. She said, I've traveled through Africa before, I'll be okay.
One of the last to see Julie alive was American balloon pilot David Weston. After Julie's vehicle was repaired, he tried to convince her not to drive the 150 miles back to Nairobi alone, but Julie wouldn't buy it.
She told me that she was going to go back to her campsite to pick her tent up and then continue on to Nairobi from there. She drove off, and that was the last I ever saw of her.
Julie never made it to Nairobi. Days later, at the family home in England, her father received word by telephone that she was missing. John Ward flew immediately to Africa to help in the search for his daughter, only to discover that no official search was underway.
I got very angry, as a matter of fact, and I still feel very angry about it now, because I really believe if these people had acted responsibly, she probably would be alive today.
John Ward mounted his own aerial search for Julie's vehicle, first above the road from Nairobi, then over the game park itself. 6 days after she disappeared, in a remote area of the park, Julie's vehicle was found stuck at the bottom of a gully.
You found the Jeep, and your daughter's nowhere in sight. What was going through your mind at that time?
Well, great sadness, because I really did believe that if we found the Jeep, we'd find her, but not to be. It was sitting down the bottom there. It was locked. We strolled around here. We called her name. We all called together, Julie, Julie, but nothing.
At the McCary Ranger Outpost, a few miles away, word came by radio that something had been found. John flew by helicopter to a spot he now calls the place.
There wasn't too much of a left. There was a fire, I found a leg and a jaw. It was a bad day.
Worst day of your life.
John also found some hair and later Julie's skull. The Kenyan authorities proposed a theory.
She had, for some reason, wandered away from her Jeep, gone in the wrong direction, got way out in the bush, and in order to try and protect herself from the animals, had lit a fire. And had either been jumped from behind and pushed into it, or something.
Everyone knows of the dangers of this place. Tourists are advised never to get out of the safari vehicles and set off on foot. So when Julie Ward died, it was fairly understandable when the newspapers proclaimed, "The animals are guilty." John Ward's odyssey was far from over. It was just beginning. Back in Nairobi, John learned that an autopsy on his daughter's remains had initially indicated murder, but by the time John saw the report, it had been crudely altered to blame the animals.
I mean, we're talking now about Kenya's chief government pathologist who's forging post-mortem reports, and we've got the chief of police who's being presented with all sorts of evidence to show the murder's taken place and refusing to accept that it's a murder or start an investigation.
So, John Ward started his own investigation. He has spent 4 years and $750,000 of his own money retracing his daughter's steps on a quest for justice. After more than a year, pressure from the British government in London and the spotlight of the world press, the Kenyan government held an official inquest into Julie's death. John Ward and his lawyer, in effect, put the government on trial. The verdict? It was murder. The animals were innocent. So who did kill Julie Ward? Despite evidence to the contrary, the Kenyan police focused in on foreigners, like the American balloon pilot.
I never felt so far away from home until that day when they started interrogating me and all kinds of thoughts going through my mind.
Meanwhile, John Ward was getting some help from Scotland Yard, and their investigation focused in on the remote ranger outpost. There were only 2 rangers on duty at the time of the disappearance, and their stories didn't jibe. And in those 2 rangers' huts, detectives found some hairs.
There's no doubt it's her hair. We didn't find any other Caucasian hairs here at all.
John believes the rangers may have rescued Julie from the stuck vehicle and then brought her to the outpost, where after a day or 2, things got nasty.
I fear she must have been raped. And once that happened, they really couldn't let her go.
Arrested and charged with murder were park rangers Jonah Maggie Roy and Peter Capine. But after a 4.5-month trial, the 2 were found not guilty. But even the judge said that 3 other game park officials should be investigated. As for the 2 who were acquitted,
I believe they are involved. Whether they did it or not, that's up to them to say. But sure as hell, she was at that Makari outpost, and they are her hairs, and I believe those 2 are involved and know what happened. And I do believe that there were other people involved.
So John Ward continues on his safari to truth. When he finds it, he says he'll be out of Africa for good.
I long for the day when I never have to come to this place again. I find it an eerie place. I loathe the corruption. I mean, the place is riddled with the corruption from top to bottom.
Well, John Ward tells us he's not giving up. He has upped the reward money for information leading to his daughter's killers, and he says he'll continue to push for a complete investigation. Coming up next, the new country music capital of the world. It's not Nashville. There's plenty of picking and grinning going on in Missouri.
How much money can you make here? You make $60,000 a day.
You might have heard about Branson, Missouri recently. Once upon a time, it was just a sleepy little Ozark town, but not any longer. You see, Branson is attracting some of the biggest names in country music, so we sent Scott Rappaport there to find out why.
It's hidden away in the heart of the Ozarks, a little place where time stood still. Branson, Missouri, tiny town, USA. Home of Dick's Five and Dime, Granny's Antiques, and some guys named Mo, Mel, and Roy that draw more than 4 million visitors here every year. Welcome to Picker's Paradise. Take your pick. Here in Branson, your choices are limitless. Country music's best and brightest, ready and waiting, in 27 theaters off a 2-lane highway that jams like a Merle Haggard medley.
I'm proud to be an Okie from the Skokie, yeah.
They're all here in Branson. Mel Tillis,
6 days on the road, I'm gonna make it home tonight.
country queen Loretta Lynn,
That he don't love me anymore, and I'll have to let him go.
the legendary Roy Clark,
There's no other place on the face of this earth that this many entertainers get together.
It's the #1 live country music town in the world, no doubt about it.
Here in Branson.
It's getting bigger all the time. And it's bumper to bumper. The cars are bumper to bumper. You hadn't seen nothing yet.
This, to be sure, is country music country. The telltale signs are just about everywhere you look. It's just a way of life around these parts, here in a little place they call Hillbilly Heaven.
It's amazing. I think they're expecting between 7 or 8 million people this year. And people come from all over.
We're from Rockford, Illinois. Elkin, North Carolina.
New Orleans, Louisiana.
Little Rock, Arkansas.
seems that everybody comes. Even 60 Minutes has been here. They travel from afar for the chance to get this close.
How are you?
I'm just fine. How are you?
See, here in Branson, every fan gets the chance to meet their favorite stars face to face, shake hands, schmooze, get autographs. It's just the way it's done here. It's called getting Bransonized.
Absolutely. I guess they'd run you out of town if you didn't do it.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Paul.
So they do it, and it's created a boomtown economy. Last year, Branson's 50,000 theater seats were filled with an estimated 4 million ticket-buying customers who came pouring in by the busload, filling the town's 9,000 hotel rooms and spending ungodly amounts of money.
I have heard in excess of $1.5 billion. Every time I say it, I get rattles in my head. $1.5 billion.
How much money can you make here?
You make 60,000 a day.
I hear something about a number, 6 million, 6 months.
Easy.
Row 6.
It is a phenomenon. The crowds, the money, the stars. But it all makes you wonder.
Why Branson, Loretta?
You got me.
I don't know why. It's amazing. It's a miracle.
That's the question. Yeah, why Branson?
According to legend, it all started back in the late 50s with the development of Silver Dollar City, a theme park built to entertain the many tourists who came to visit the Ozarks. Then in 1959, a group of good old boys called the Bald Knobbers decided to put on their own shows for the tourists as an alternative form of entertainment. They built a theater. It was an idea that took. Now Roy Clark's got his own place. Same for Mickey Gilley, Jim Stafford, Mo Bandy, Boxcar Willie, and Mel Tillis.
Let's get on something to talk about, baby.
Louise Mandrell will be playing here at the Grand Palace, a $13 million marvel big enough to house the entire population of Branson and have 300 empty seats left over. Johnny Cash is coming soon. And check out the new kid on the block.
The days of wine and roses.
Yup, even Andy Williams is here, sporting a brand new multi-million-dollar theater and a quiet confidence that he can tap into Branson's seemingly endless prosperity.
Do you see any end to the growth here?
It could be that this is just the beginning.
Now, if you think Andy's a bit out of place here in Hillbilly Heaven, check out Branson's #1 attraction. He's Shoji Tabuchi, a fiddlin' fiend from Osaka who's packing them in and driving them wild.
Thank you. Come back. They say that Branson is Hillbilly Heaven. So what are you doing here?
Well, I consider myself a Japanese hillbilly living in Ozarks.
You're a Japanese hillbilly.
Japanese hillbilly or not, Shoji's mastered the first rule of business in Branson. Know your audience and give them what they want. It's the kind of wholesome, patriotic Americana that Branson is known for. The stuff that keeps them coming back.
It's family shows. It's not X-rated or anything like that. It's very clean, nice shows.
It's the best.
I love it. I love it.
And they continue to love it in record numbers in a place they call Hillbilly Heaven.
Branson, Missouri. Do you know it's now the second largest tourist attraction in the United States, right behind Disney World? There are at least 40 different music shows in Branson now. That means you could be there for more than a month and see a different show every night. But you'd want to get out of town early, because did you see those traffic jams? Our news break's coming up next, and then when we come back, the smallest police station in America.
Police Department, Smith speaking.
Good afternoon, I'm R.D. Saul, News 7. A tough day here in Boston as family, friends, and fans paid their final farewell to Reggie Lewis. Thousands of people who did not get the chance to meet number 35 lined the funeral route this afternoon to get a final glimpse, to offer words of farewell to a man that admired on and off the basketball court. Earlier, an emotional 2-hour service at a jam-packed Matthews Arena at Northeastern, where those closest to Reggie said goodbye.
I just want to say, Reggie, 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 for the last time. Man, you hear me? Reggie, I love you, man.
A wrap-up of the day's events on a special edition of News 7 coming up at 5 o'clock. Then the tribute to the captain continues with a special News 7 presentation tonight at 9:30. In other news, a tearful end to a custody battle over a little Michigan girl known simply as Baby Jessica. This afternoon, the little 2.5-year-old was taken away from the only family she's ever known and given back to her biological parents. She was screaming. Jessica was given up at birth and taken in by the Michigan couple, but Jessica's biological parents want her back and won custody. Weather, hot and humid today. Harvey Leonard's up in the Weather Center to tell us what's ahead. Harv?
All right, thank you, R.D. 89 here in Boston. You're right, very humid as well. Watching a band of thunderstorms now moving into western and northern New England, and there is a severe thunderstorm watch out for western and northern New England, and we'll show you that area right now. However, it's possible some of our suburbs also will be getting a shower or thunderstorm in the next few hours. As you head south and east of Boston, the chances of thunderstorms decrease. That watch, by the way, is until 8 o'clock. We'll update you later. R.D.?
Thank you, Harvey. That's the news for now. Don't forget a special edition of News 7, a tribute to Reggie Lewis, coming up at 5. See you then.
Welcome back to Inside Edition Extra. Now, you've heard about small-town America. Well, here's a story about a small town with even a smaller police station. Maybe the smallest in the world. Who knows? Here's John Scott with a look inside America.
The town of Carabel on the Florida Panhandle is not what you would call your major metropolitan area. You'll find it on Route 98 between Apalachicola and Sopchoppy. You'll also find the one thing that's put Carabel on the must-see list for millions of people. Well, maybe not that many.
Main Street here is like a lot of small towns in America. There's the video store, the hamburger stand across the street. Then you pass the police station, and over there, a T-shirt and souvenir shop. Oh, you say you missed the police station? It's right behind me. It's a phone booth. Police Department, Smith speaking.
Jesse Smith, Carabel's top cop. For 20 years, he's been patrolling here, answering tourists' questions about the world's smallest police station. Now, to be honest, there is a room over at City Hall where Chief Smith and his 2 officers store their equipment and write reports. But this is the police station, and plenty functional. You can hear the thing ring all over town, thanks to the bell mounted on the video store. One time when it rang, the woman on the other end was calling from The Tonight Show and invited the chief to come out to California, his first trip that far west.
Would you welcome Chief Jesse Smith?
The video store has a tape of his appearance with Johnny Carson and will happily play it for visitors. And there was the 400-pound sheriff's deputy who squeezed in to use the phone.
He got in there one time and the door shut. We had to call the fire department, get Jaws to come down here and get him out.
But mostly it's quiet here under the Chinaberry tree, where the officers sit and wait for a call and watch the phone to make sure no one steals it, and help the tourists with their cameras and their questions.
This is adorable. I loved it.
Nice thought. Maybe they ought to try that in New York. Well, that's our show for today. Now, coming up on the next Inside Edition Extra, the tragic tale of a woman who says she was raped by her brother-in-law for 8 years.
Let him take pictures of me, and I let him do what he did to me.
And a report on the latest theories on the assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy.
I could never be a part of a conspiracy.
That'll be on the next Inside Edition Extra. That's it for now. I'm Tom Ellis saying so long for today. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you soon.